All right. So practical leadership. So most businesses start out with someone who's passionate about their craft or their trade or a product that they have. And as businesses grow, so does a requirement for staff. And then there are also those people that have been star employees that end up getting promoted into a leadership position without any real training. So this presents a bit of a problem, and people issues are often cited on lists of the biggest challenges that businesses face. So whether that's finding the right people, keeping the right people, or getting them to do what needs to be done. So after having been a leader, working with leaders and training leaders, I developed what I call the Empower Leadership model. And my intention for this model is really to take some of the guesswork out of managing people and keeping employees engaged. Um, so in an HR trends report, pre-COVID, the top 3 human resources priorities were improving employee engagement, improving the ability to attract and retain the right people, and transforming organizational culture. So the same is true in our mid-COVID world, because we're not post-COVID yet. And there's some extra challenges thrown in with some of the restrictions that are in place, bringing in remote work, that kind of thing. So the Empower model is really about improving employee engagement, which then takes care of creating and maintaining a positive workplace culture and also attracting and retaining the right people. So today I'm just going to walk you guys through this model. And as you can see here, it's an acronym for the different components of it. So there's a tool that I really like to use in place of traditional job descriptions, and it's called a role scorecard, and it touches on a lot of the areas that I'm going to be sharing with you. So by completing these for current or future positions in your company, you can intentionally empower engagement in your employees and see the benefits of increased productivity. Just so you know, I will be following up with everybody with an email, and I'm going to send you a blank template of this so that you can have it to use. So let's get started with the first letter, which is E, expectations. And so there's a few things that I'm going to say today that I want you to take special note of, and expectations is one of those things. So Gallup studies have consistently reported that about half of all US employees don't know what's expected of them at work. And I imagine that it's probably similar in Canada. So if you think about this, half of your people don't know what you want from them. And if you don't know what's expected of you, how are you going to meet those expectations? And it seems pretty simple, right? Here's the thing though, we tend to make assumptions. So if an employee makes an assumption about what's expected of them, it may not match the actual expectations of the job. And it can create confusion, stress, disharmony in the team. I have a story about this. So I worked with a company full of like get her done type people. And one of the employees, Jane, and changing the name to protect the guilty or innocent, but Jane was one of those people. She took personal responsibility to solve problems and answer questions for anybody that asked. And there doesn't really seem to be anything wrong with that, but she didn't always have the right answers. And she'd spent a lot of time trying to find them. So on one particular day, an employee came in with his last pay stub, and he had a question about a deduction that had come off his pay. She didn't do payroll, and instead of sending this person to the payroll manager, who was literally 10 feet away in the next office, she searched for an answer and gave him one that was incorrect. So this caused the employee to get pretty upset because he didn't agree with the answer she gave him. He didn't agree with the deduction that she talked about. So now he's mad. And because Jane did not like conflict, she just kind of backed right up and said, okay, go talk to the payroll manager. So instead of doing that in the first place, where the payroll manager could have like 2 minutes answered the question, sent the employee off on his way, she's now dealing with an employee that's upset and angry and mad. So she needs to calm him down, go through and explain what the deduction was, get him calmed down and on his way. So all in all, it took up a lot of time that it didn't have to. Probably about an hour for Jane and the employee, and about half an hour for the payroll manager. And so Jane was working with the best of intentions at heart. Um, her assumption was that she was expected to answer whatever questions came her way, and that was her priority. Now, the payroll manager and her own supervisor felt that she should have known better. And my question to them was, how would she know better if you didn't tell her, if those expectations weren't made clear? So in my opinion, the fault here was on her direct supervisor for not letting her know that, hey, if somebody comes in with a question about payroll, send them to the payroll manager. It seems obvious, but it just goes to show you that people will make assumptions. So if we go back to that stat, 50% of people in any given organization are making assumptions about what they should be doing at any given time. And this can lead to stories like the one about Jane, who was really trying to go above and beyond. But it can also lead to stories about people not doing what they're supposed to because they don't know, nobody's ever told them. So when people make assumptions about what they're supposed to do, they're going to be working under a veil of uncertainty and confusion, and they're going to be waiting for feedback. Now, if the feedback never comes, they'll continue on. The worst case scenario here is that if the feedback does come and it's negative, and so the employee doesn't know, they don't know what's expected of them, all of a sudden the boss walks in and starts reaming them out for doing something wrong or not doing something that they should have been doing and they'd never been told in the first place. So this is how you lose good people, by just not being clear. So don't let your people make assumptions, and be sure that every one of your direct reports can answer without assumptions yes to the question, do you know what's expected of you at work? So using the role scorecard example that we had, job titles, essential duties, key performance indicators, these can all help you get really clear on what you expect from your employees, because before you can share your expectations, you need to be clear about what you want from them. And I've worked with a lot of business owners that say, well, I just need somebody to come in and do this. And they're not really clear on what they expect of their employees. All right, so moving on to motivation. So motivation is defined as the general desire or willingness of someone to do something. I don't know how many times I've been asked, how do I motivate my people? And I want to tell you the short answer for that is you can't. All right, so if you think about this, it kind of relates to control. You can't directly control another person, not your spouse, not your kids, and definitely not the people that report to you. And when people say, well, I'm a parent, of course I can control my kids. Well, tell anybody that has a newborn baby that doesn't sleep through the night, because if you could really control that, they'd be sleeping all night. Now, people can be motivated by rewards, whether that's a raise, a gift, something like that, but that's really only temporary. So if you think about the last time that you were given an award, given a raise, given a bonus, yeah, it felt really good and you were probably motivated, but how long did that actually last? I mean, the raise lasts for maybe the first couple paychecks, and then that's just the money that you get. So in a leadership context, you want to create a space where your employees motivate themselves. And so if we go to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, people have an inherent need to belong. As soon as they have, oxygen, a roof over their head, food in their belly, we start to move up, and then you get into that love and belonging stage. So people want to feel like they're a part of something, a community, something bigger than themselves. And I believe that every position in every company should be contributing to a bigger picture. And if it's not, you need to ask yourself if that position is really required. What you want to do is create a space where everyone sees their part in this something bigger, and that is going to help motivate them. So this is inspiring motivation, and you can do that through getting to know your people, which we'll talk about a little bit later. What they value, what their strengths are, what their why is. Why did they come to work every day? First, though, you need to know what your why is. And so Simon Sinek says that people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And the same is true for your employees. They may join your company because they have the knowledge and the skills to do the job that you're hiring them for and what you're offering as far as compensation, but they're going to stay because of your why. So on the role scorecard, I also have motivation in a job title. And you might be wondering how a job title can be motivating. So I believe that job titles can be inspiring and provide people with the motivation to live up to that title. So different ones that I've heard, Chief Visionary Officer is a really good one. And actually, Arthur, I'm so glad you're here because I always use you as an example for this. One of the ones that Arthur used to use was Chief Executive Dream Driver. And I love that. Um, Sand and gravel company that I worked for years ago, we called our laborers aggregate production specialists, right? So then they want to live up to that. Oh, I'm a specialist, so I better act like a specialist. So it's motivating them to do better and to live up to that job title that they have. So is there a way that you guys even can make your own job titles something that's going to motivate you, especially on those hard days? We all have hard days at work. All right, moving on. Preparation. P is for preparation. So fail to plan equals planning to fail. And here there's a lot of different ways that you can use preparation in a leadership context. And here I want to talk about onboarding. Onboarding is the process of bringing a new employee into your company, and it's more than orientation. It's more than filling out forms. It usually encompasses about the first 3 months of employment. So some stats, because I like stats. 20% of employee turnover happens within the first 45 days of employment. 70% of new hires will stay at a company for 3 years if they have a well-structured onboarding experience. And so for the small business owners here, you might think that you're too small to have a real structured plan in place, but the truth is, even if it's your very first hire, you want to make the experience a good one. The cost to replace an employee can be up to 3 months of that person's salary. So even let's say you're hiring somebody at $20 an hour for 40 hours a week. That's an annual salary of just over $41,000. To replace that employee could cost up to $10,000. That's a lot of money when you look at it this way. And that being said, if you do make a bad hire, or if you have somebody in your workplace that's toxic, like get rid of them fast. I always say hire slow, fire fast. Because you want to really protect your workplace culture, and it doesn't take long for somebody to really wreck what you're building. So again, looking at the role scorecard, if you understand the purpose of the role and the duties of the position, then you can really be prepared for onboarding and create that onboarding plan, understanding what training they might need. You could partner them up with somebody else that's already on your team for some of that training. And again, it's just more touch points than you typically would have with an employee that's maybe been with you a little bit longer. And now we never hire people with a thought of having to replace them. So it's best to just make it a solid process right from the get-go. My first day at my last job started out with me walking into the office. One person said good morning. My supervisor wasn't there. I had to ask where my office was. And so somebody showed me, I sat down and there was forms to fill out. So I filled out the forms. About 2 hours later, one of the owners walked by and said, "Hey, we had an injury out in the field. Can you do the WCB paperwork?" And it was like, okay. So another hour or so goes by, and then somebody finally came in and talked to me and said, "Okay, hey, here's what you're doing here, and here's what you're supposed to do." I can definitely see why somebody would be consider looking for alternate work. And they actually had hired somebody just before me that came in, worked for half a day, and at lunchtime said, "I'm out of here. I'm not coming back." Now, I ended up working at this place for about 9.5 years, and it was a great place. And I gave them the benefit of the doubt because I was being hired as the HR manager. So it was my responsibility to onboard people. So I gave them the benefit of the doubt, and it did actually work out fairly well. But you can see how having that first day experience and then that onboarding experience is so important to building a culture and getting engagement, because that's really what we're talking about, is engaging people here. Right, so if we move on now to the O, that's for opportunity. So according to the Alberta HR trends released in April of 2020, and I'm sure it's not much different in Ontario, Monique, 88% of employees left their jobs for a better opportunity. Now, you know, in a business like Chris's, small business, Natalie's, there's not a lot of opportunity, formal opportunities for employees and for advancement. But if you engage your people right now in goal setting for the business, let them in on your growth plans, get them excited about helping you grow the business. And that's going to inspire that motivation. And it's going to give them something to work towards while also giving you some ideas on how to achieve your plans. So if you look at things like special projects, letting your employees share ideas is a big one. Training and development, those are all opportunities that even small business owners can get their employees involved in. Most organizations now, regardless of the size of them, have fairly flat organizational structures. So the old, you got to climb the ladder isn't what it used to be. There's no ladders anymore. So if you look at lateral moves, if you look at expanding training, you know, in different parts of the organization, then those are the opportunities that will again drive engagement. So one of the things, understanding motivation and opportunity with your people is really best served by W, which is for walk around. Now, management by walking around is a term that dates back to the 70s. And I believe that it's just as important today, and maybe even more so with the increase in remote work that we have going on right now. So in a recent book by Marcus Buckingham and Ashley Goodall called The 9 Lies About Work, they determined that people need attention even more than they need feedback. So this is another one of those things that I want you to take note of. Do not ignore your people. Do not. I had a client who decided that she wanted to apply for a job that seemed to be a really great fit for her skills and her knowledge. And she was interviewed by the owner, and he painted this amazing picture of this culture and this growing company and how everything was going to be amazing and offering her at the seat of the table to be part of this growth. And she was super excited about it. She was offered the job. And then when she got to work, she didn't even see the owner, her boss, for the first week that she was there. Or she saw him around the office, but he didn't even say hello. So second week, Tuesday of the second week, her boss is in the office, the owner who hired her. So she goes up to him and she's like, "Hey, hi, I'm here. What do you want me to do?" It was a brand new role to the company, so there was nobody there to train her. And so she's like, "Hey, what are your expectations? What should I be doing? Where do you want me to start on some of this stuff?" And his response was, "Well, you're a professional. You should know what you're supposed to be doing. And while we're talking, I don't have time to manage you day to day. So you're going to just report to the operations manager." Needless to say, was not the job that she thought she was signing up for. Um, she didn't stay there long, just a couple months. And, you know, she was telling me, she's like, "I can count on one hand the number of times that either the owner or the operations manager, who she was now reporting to, even said hello to her, never mind got her involved with what she was trying to do." So, right, she could have done amazing things for that company, and they blew it as far as I'm concerned. So the point of the story, she didn't know what was expected of her. She didn't feel like part of a team, so there was no motivation, there was no belonging. And she was ignored for like the better part of the couple months that she worked there. So what management by walking around is, it's essentially checking in and taking formality out of having meetings with your employees by showing up to their work site, their workplace, and having a quick conversation with them. Now with remote work, this is a little bit tougher. So maybe it's a phone call, maybe it's a Zoom call, but it's not that whole formal agenda. Hey, your boss wants to talk to you. It's like a check-in, really is what it is. And the objective behind this is getting to know your people, making sure that they have everything that they need to be successful. And when it's informal like this, people are more likely to open up about their personal life, their values, how work is going. They're more likely to be open to share ideas with you on how you can make your workplace better. Um, and as informal as this is, there's 3 questions that you should be asking every time you have one of these. And I would suggest that this happens about once a week. And so the questions are, what are you working on this week? Do you have everything you need to get this completed? And how can I help? How can I help? It's really important to ask the question that way. Because if I went to, say, Jackie's my direct report, and I said, hey, we're having this conversation. I'm like, do you need any help? Her first answer is going to be no, right? If it's a yes, no question, it's like, absolutely not, because I am competent and I can do everything I need to do. So our brains want to always answer questions. So when it's a yes, no question, the answer is going to be no, because they don't want to let the boss down. But how can I help? Then they're going to start thinking through the steps that they have to take through this project to get it completed and to meet their deadlines. So they may not need any help, but at least you know they've thought it through. And it's going to help relieve any stress or overwhelm that they're feeling, because now you've opened that up and you're creating that place of trust where they're like, okay, here's what I have to do. I'm feeling kind of overwhelmed about this. I have all these meetings scheduled. As a boss, you can switch priorities around for them. You can say, okay, well, you don't really need to be at this meeting. It's not about micromanaging. It's about supporting your people. And it's about developing that circle of trust where they feel comfortable saying to you, hey, I'm feeling really overwhelmed at this. Can we extend the deadline? Can we do this? Can we do this? Can we do this? And it's just, you're showing interest in what they're doing. You're not expected to do stuff for them. That's some of it is their stuff to take care of it. Some of it is yours. Again, it comes down to support. So then we move into education. And I believe that lifelong learning should be embedded into every organization, regardless of size or type even. And the education doesn't have to be formal. It can be informal talks where you're educating your employees about how the company is doing, about the industry, about what's going on in your industry, your products, your services. And these things are also great to add to your onboarding plan so that people start to get a feel for what you're doing. Now, educating your employees has multiple benefits. It's motivating, right, for your people, plus you're contributing or you're continuing to groom this employee for future opportunities in your business. I always say you should spend the most time with your best people, the ones that you see all of this potential in. Spend time with them. Lots of times, business owners and leaders will spend time with the squeaky wheel or that person that seems to need the most help and is the most difficult. Spend just as much time or more time with your high performers, because those are the people that you don't want to lose. By providing continuous education, you're building a company culture with your people, and that they'll just end up being champions for you, for future employees that come in, for your customers, for your clients, all of that. And as you continue to get to know your people using that walk around thing that we talked about, keep an eye open for their natural strengths. This would be a great place to invest in some formal learning. So as an example, if you have an admin assistant who seems to just have a natural affinity for numbers and accounting and stuff like that, maybe an accounting course would be really helpful and help them to develop this skill. This way they can maybe take on some more of the responsibility and then can provide opportunities for them and also potentially free up some of your time. This is especially important for small business owners, and I think of Chris, who's worn all the hats for a long time in his company, and then now he's starting to recognize in some employees it's like, hey, this person is actually pretty good at this, so let's give them a little bit more opportunity. Frees up time for Chris, is better for the company, helps with the growth of the company. So our last one, our R, is about recognition and reward. And this is the one that I always get a lot of pushback on because it seems frivolous. It's like, why? I pay them. Why do I have to give them anything more than that? So studies have actually shown that when employees and their work are valued, their job satisfaction and then their productivity rises. And they become motivated internally to continue to improve the work that they're doing, right? When you recognize somebody for good work, it builds their confidence levels. And when you build their confidence levels, they're more motivated to just keep doing the right things. Giving a raise or a bonus never hurts, but again, just remember that that's not going to be motivating for very long. Now, rewards or recognition don't have to cost a lot of money, and it doesn't always have to be formal. One of the best ways to provide recognition to your employees is by giving them or mailing them, even mailing them is even better, a handwritten note. So if you think about when's the last time you actually got a handwritten note that maybe your grandma sent it or something, but right? It's everything's email and text, and like we're living in this world of Zoom. And if you do go and get the mail, if you still get bills in the mail, that's all you're getting in the mail, or you're getting junk mail. So sending them like a handwritten note, it's going to be appreciated and it's going to be valued more because those employees are going to recognize that you took time out of your busy schedule to think of them and write them this note. Other low cost ideas, some paid time off. Let them leave a couple hours early on a Friday afternoon and pay them for it. Buy them lunch. Um, Celebrating milestones is another really great one. So whether that's a work anniversary, their birthday, just something special to show that they're more than a number in your company, that they're also a person, right? Now, some tips to remember when you're providing this recognition, whether it's formal or informal, is it needs to be specific. You can't just say good job. That's way too generic. So try, you did an amazing job in your presentation at the meeting today. Or, I really like the way you handled that difficult customer. So again, make it as specific as possible and then make it timely. Don't wait for a performance review. Don't even wait until next week when you're doing your walk around 10-minute check-in. As soon as you can after the event, tell them. And this also goes, by the way, for redirection or discipline. If you have to have a difficult conversation with one of your employees, do it as soon as possible. And then you want to also make your recognition personal and meaningful. So again, this walk around, this 10-minute check-in once a week with your people, you're getting to know them. You're getting to know what's important to them. And this helps you make any type of recognition personal and meaningful to them. So if you have an employee that loves Starbucks, a Tim Hortons gift card isn't going to be the best thing for them. It's not going to be as meaningful. But if you give them a Starbucks one, they're going to go, oh my gosh, they remembered that I like Starbucks and not Tim Hortons, right? It's these little things that can go a long way. So this actually brings us to the end of the Empower model. And I just wanted to let you guys know that this is just like a really brief snippet of, here's the role scorecard again. But this is just a brief snippet of a 6-week program that I have coming up that it comes with a bunch of practical tools and applications to build an engaged and accountable and productive team. The bottom line that I wanted to share with you guys is that practical leadership is really about building relationships with your employees. Make them feel valued, and they will be more engaged and loyal to your company. Engagement and loyalty increases productivity. Gallup research has shown that companies with a highly engaged workforce are 21% more profitable, right? We're all in business to make money. So if you can use these tips to engage your employees, at the end of the day, it's just going to put more money in your jeans, as Arthur would say.